So good evening and thank you for coming to the medical review. So before we start the event tonight, can you please put your electronics mobiles away so that we don't interrupt the filming and also we can respect the speakers. So please make it mute or put it away. And so the medical review, it's not the medics like last year. So those of you who remember the medical fair in March might think that this might be a similar event, but it's actually a more academically developed event that initiated from the medical fair. So we have been preparing during Thursday CCA time, and the medical review is an event in which group of students select a specific medicine-related topic and give short presentations in front of audiences like you who came today. Thanks for coming. And the theme for this year's research is 21st century diseases, as we wanted to focus more on recent issues regarding medicine. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A session for 10 minutes in which the judging panel and the audience have the opportunity to ask unscripted questions to the speakers. And this session is designed to enhance students' experience in elaborating detailed information as well as demonstrate their understanding of the topic. So if you could please participate if you wish, and there will be the judging panel who will lead this session.
So there are 3 judging panels. The first judging panel is Soo-jung Lee. Can you quickly just stand up? She's the first judging panel, and Soo-jung Lee is a clinical researcher and currently working at the National Center for Mental Health. She works for the Ministry of Health and Welfare. She has graduated from Jungwang Medical School and earned a doctor's degree. She has worked in Severance Hospital, one of the most famous university-linked hospital in Korea. She was a clinical instructor for child psychiatry back then. She was in Minnesota Fairview Hospital as a child clinical researcher. And the second judging panel is Seon Kim. Can you just come back? She's a family physician, shortly FM, and she worked at the medical institution. She has graduated from Yonsei University and earned a doctor's degree. She worked in Severance Hospital as well as Soo-jung Lee, and also in a hospital in Munich, which is in Germany. And now she has come back to Korea and worked in various hospitals, and now currently is working in a hospital in Jeju. And not included in this slide, recently we have got a new judge who's English teacher, and he is Mr. Hall. Can you just... He is, as you guys all know, he's the head of English, and he's going to check the postures and how students present.
So we had the preliminary round last week because we had 6 teams at the CCA and we wanted to present the top 3 teams. So here are the teams that we'll be presenting tonight. So first up is the team that researched about circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus. So this will be presented by 3 year 11 girls, and followed by another group of 3 year 11 girls who will be presenting Parkinson's disease. And lastly, but not least, Alzheimer's disease, which will be presented by year 12 students. So we will start the presentations now. So can the poliovirus group please come up to the stage, and please give them a warm welcome around the applause. So I will briefly read the abstract of their research. So they have been researching about poliovirus, as mentioned, and it says that it has derived from the weakening virus originally contained in OPV that mutates into circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus. And through the presentation, the team aims to introduce the disease, compare it with other types of poliovirus, and state the recent outbreaks around the world, and finish up by discussing the future of how to eradicate the disease. So let's listen.
So, good evening. We are Chaekyung, Cindy, and Katie, and we have prepared a short presentation about circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus, which is also called as CVDPV. So, as we all know, vaccine is safe, effective, and interrupts the person-to-person spread of polio. However, on rare occasions and only in under-immunized population, the weakened virus originally containing OPV can mutate into circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus.
So what is CVDPV? So oral polio vaccine that contains the live attenuated vaccine virus has been used as the main tool in the WHO polio eradication program. When a child is immunized with OPV, the oral polio vaccine, the virus replicates in a human gut, activating immune response in the human body. Then they are excreted after a limited period as a feces. During this time, the mutation in OPV might rapidly revert and spread out into immediate community before eventually dying out. On rare occasions, this may result in transmissible and neurovirulent circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus strains. So, circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus particularly isolates for the type of poliovirus for which there is an evidence for person-to-person transmission. So, as you can see on the screen, the following is the definition of CVDPV. So, there are three types of CVDPV, which originates from the three serotypes of wild poliovirus WPV, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Poliovirus consists of an RNA genome that is enclosed in a protein shell called capsid, and this capsid is the thing that differentiates the three serotypes, since each type has different capsid protein. So, type 1 has Brunhild and Mahoney strains, type 2 has Lansing and MEF1 strain, and type 3 has Leong and Saket strains. Symptomatically, all three strains are identical in that they cause irreversible paralysis and even death. However, the genetic and virologic differences make these three viruses separate viruses that must be eradicated individually.
So there are different types of polioviruses that are circulating in the world today. However, there are no clinical differences between these polioviruses such as wild poliovirus, oral poliovirus, or which is our topic, circulating vaccine-derived polioviruses. So CVDPV shows the symptoms including severe muscle pain, loss of muscle reflexes, spasms, and muscle cramps. The non-paralytical symptoms may include fatigue, vomiting, headaches, fevers, and sore throats.
Next is eradication of disease. In the status quo, 2 out of 3 serotypes of wild poliovirus has been eradicated. In 2015, the eradication of type 2 wild poliovirus has been declared, and recently in 2019, type 3 also has been declared eradicated. However, type 1 wild poliovirus is still circulating in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Since there is no cure for poliomyelitis, polio vaccine is the only method to protect children for life. Thanks to an increase for massive vaccination program and availability of cheap and effective vaccine, the case of wild polio virus has dropped by 99% since 1988. The eradication of WPV2 and WPV3 indicates that poliovirus can be completely eradicated. However, the job is not yet completed until poliovirus 1, type 1 is globally eradicated. On the same notion, the recent outbreaks of circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus is becoming a concerning issue among the global community.
So, for the outbreak of this disease, currently 106 cases of CVD-PV has been reported from over 10 countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, Indonesia, Myanmar, and etc. The most significant risk factor for CVD-PV is insufficient population immunity. The risk factor can also function as another factor favoring poliovirus circulation, such as number and density of non-immune susceptible persons and deficiency in hygiene and sanitation. The outbreak occurs when the number and density of non-immune susceptible rises to the point where the chain of CVD-PV transmission can propagate. And also, insensitive surveillance can be an additional risk factor for CVD-PV transmission. So the maintenance of high rate of polio vaccine coverage is essential in such areas.
So we have prepared 2 countries that CVD-PV type 1 is present and has recently outbroken. The first country is Indonesia. So this year in February, circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus type 1 has been confirmed in the Papua province in Indonesia. Last year in November, 2 genetically linked CVD-PV viruses were isolated from a child with acute flaccid paralysis with onset paralysis. And in a healthy community contact in January this year, a child whose stool sample was collected in a remote village approximately 3 to 4 kilometers away from the AFP cases. So even though this province shares a border with Papua New Guinea, this outbreak is not linked to the recent outbreak that is currently affecting the neighboring country. In response to the recent outbreak, the government of Indonesia has targeted children under the age of 15 to be vaccinated with bivalent or polio vaccines. The disease surveillance has been further strengthened in these areas, and the Ministry of Health in Indonesia has established border vaccination posts and initiated environmental surveillance in the province. Also, they have conducted a simulation exercise to test their polio response plans.
So in Myanmar, the outbreak of CVD-PV1 has been reported in 2007 with 4 cases, and in 2015, the outbreak of CVD-PV2 has been reported in Rakhine State with 2 confirmed cases. And recently, in 19th of August 2019, the 4th case of CVD-PV1 has been confirmed with 6-year-old child, and this child has no history of vaccination with oral polio vaccine. However, since the disease has been confirmed, the neighboring countries such as Thailand and other countries in Southeast Asia have been informed with the confirmed disease. For the public health response in Myanmar, the Ministry of Health are undertaking strong measures to stop the transmission of this disease, and an epidemiological and virological field investigation has been conducted. The BOPV vaccination campaign has been conducted in 12 townships around the world, targeting children under the age of 5, and also 3 large-scale of campaigns about BOPV vaccination are being planned for August and October 2019 to cover 98 high-risk townships around the world. So it's important to educate and inform people through campaigns to raise the awareness of this disease and stop the transmission of CVD-PV.
So why is CVD-PV appearing in specifically Indonesia and Myanmar? The overall public health risk is high in these areas due to low socioeconomic conditions and the poor health infrastructures in these areas. Also, these areas are hard to reach areas with accessibility challenges due to security concerns and geographical locations, which hamper the vaccination and the implementation of the response actions. Lastly, the high number of nucleotide changes in the CVD-PV isolates, the number of newly discovered cases, indicates that the virus may have been circulating over a long time, thus increasing the risk of spread.
Next, we'll talk about the future. So it is important in all countries, especially the countries that have frequent contacts and travels with polio-affected countries and areas, to strengthen their polio surveillance system and ensure high vaccination coverage. Meanwhile, the Global Polio Eradication Institute has unveiled the new endgame strategy, which will include tactics to address the recent CBDPV outbreaks, such as using inactivated polio vaccine and the novel oral polio vaccine, which two vaccines that give the same protection as the normal oral polio vaccine, however, with reducing risk of mutating and causing paralysis. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for good presentations. Could you explain the difference of the inactivated virus vaccine and attenuated live vaccine?
So the inactivated polio vaccine doesn't contain the active vaccine virus. So the polio virus inside the IPV, inactivated polio vaccine, would not cause circulating vaccine-derived polio virus, since the virus inside the vaccine would not mutate into the other form and revert into the original form, which caused the CBDPV outbreaks.
Do you think the inactivated vaccine is preferred or superior to the attenuated live vaccine?
Yes, I think yeah, because since the international organizations are planning to use inactivated polio vaccine more than oral polio vaccine, I think it is more superior, since that it wouldn't cause any of circulating vaccine-derived polio virus, thus leading to the global eradication of polio virus overall.
But the attenuated live vaccine is a benefit compared to the inactivated vaccine. Have you ever heard about the herd immunity?
Yes.
Then can you explain to me?
So is herd immunity about the disease, like the group of people who are immune to disease?
What?
Who are yes. Yeah. So since polio vaccines are usually used for children under age of 5, like most children around the globe are immunized with vaccine of polio virus. However, like children living in inadequate sanitation and in places that lacks of health program and health vaccination programs, they are not immunized at all, so they are being subjected by such disease more frequently.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Clearly, a lot of research went into that, and as knowing little about medicine as I do, in your research, did you find any indication that the final strain of polio might, in the near future, be eradicated?
So this circulating vaccine-derived polio virus, you mean?
Yes, so
Yeah.
you mentioned
Type one?
two of the viruses have been eradicated as of 2019. Does it look likely to you that the third might be eradicated anytime soon?
I think the third polio virus, the type 1, would be also eradicated, since the last case was reported in 2017. So it hasn't been like identified for 3 years like now, and also it is only circulating in Afghanistan and Pakistan currently. So I think it'll be also eradicated in near future.
Thank you. That was very great. Thank you very much, girls. Well done.
So thank you for the poliovirus team. The first team is done. And the second team is Parkinson's disease. So briefly introducing their research, the aim is to examine this disease through both fundamental and extended research. And in addition to most basic elements of PD, such as its cause, risk factors, symptoms, and treatment, a further step is taken to correlate the illness with other global issues in diverse populations. By addressing ethical controversies raised from the advancement of medical technology in attempting to cure PD, the study further imposes philosophical questions on the legitimacy of debatable scientific topics. Over to you guys.
Good evening, everyone. We are Alicia, Sunny, and Eunice, and today we are going to be presenting on our study related to Parkinson's disease.
By definition, Parkinson's is a progressive disease of the nervous system that's marked by tremors, rigid muscles, and slow, imprecise movements, and it chiefly affects middle-aged and elderly people. It is commonly associated with the degeneration of the brain and lack of dopamine.
So Parkinson's disease is caused by the gradual breakdown of nerve cells, and that includes the nerve cells that produce dopamine and norepinephrine. Now, both of the losses of these two nerve endings cause symptoms such as motor illnesses, even mood swings, motor systems, automatic function loss, and movement control. But the exact reason why this is happening is still unknown to the scientific community, and further research has to be done. Some scientists say that it's due to the genetics of their heredity or even the environment, but the percentage of that is extremely low, and the exact cause has to be further researched upon. We have tried to research upon this on and on, but even the scientists have not figured this out, thus the exact cure has not been mentioned yet.
So there are four main risk factors that increase the chance of developing Parkinson's. This comes with age, genetics, sex, and constant exposure to toxins. When one goes over the age of 60, the chance of developing Parkinson's increases drastically. Age affects cell regeneration rates, which leads to rapid Parkinson's development. With genetics, if someone has relatives that had Parkinson's disease in the past, the chances are they may also develop it. However, unless they are close relatives, the risks are very small. When it comes to gender, male are more likely to be affected by Parkinson's disease. In fact, male are 50% more likely. This is mainly due to the fact that the hormone estrogen protects the nervous system of females. This is why women with late menopause and women who are more fertile have less of a chance of developing Parkinson's. Constant exposure to the toxins and herbicide and pesticide may increase the risk of developing Parkinson's as well. Chemicals such as MPTPs and polychlorinated biphenyls damage and interfere with the production of dopamine.
Symptoms of Parkinson's can be divided into three sections. So standard symptoms are symptoms that most patients with Parkinson's go through, and treatable symptoms are symptoms of Parkinson's that can be treated through medication. Symptoms of Parkinson's can be divided into three sections: standard symptoms, treatable symptoms, and extreme symptoms. Standard symptoms are symptoms that most people with Parkinson's would go through, and treatable symptoms are symptoms that are treatable through medication, and extreme symptoms are symptoms that only patients in the very late stages of Parkinson's would go through. Standard symptoms include rigid muscles, impaired posture, and balance. Treatable symptoms include sleeping disorder and excretory problems, and extreme symptoms include chronic fatigue and sexual dysfunction. progression of Parkinson's can be divided into 5 sections, and stage 1 is the mildest form of Parkinson's. In stage 1, patients experience minor changes in facial expression, walk, and posture, and the changes are so slight that only close friends and family members will notice them. And then stage 5 is the most extreme version of Parkinson's. It is the most progressed Parkinson's, and this is when patients cannot carry out daily tasks by themselves, and standing and walking is made impossible, and patients require 24/7 round-the-clock care. Stage 3 is a major turning point in Parkinson's, because this is when the progression of Parkinson's really starts to accelerate. Prevalence and incidence. Approximately 1 to 2 people per 1,000 population are affected with Parkinson's at any given time, and men are Parkinson's is 50% more common in men than it is in women. Prevalence of Parkinson's also increases with age. For example, it affects only 1% of the population above the age of 60 and 5% of the population above the age of 65. Also, only 5% of people with Parkinson's are under the age of 50. If we were to relate race and Parkinson's, Hispanics are most likely to develop Parkinson's, while Black people are the least likely to develop Parkinson's. This may be due to a lack of research statistics, as there are only 2 research papers that we could find that related to this topic.
There has been an interesting study done on the relationship between Parkinson's and polio. In the study, more than 5,400 Danish polio patients were found out to be twice as likely to develop Parkinson's over time. After this research, no direct link was found, but there was an interesting connection. Poliomyelitis destroys nerve cells, while Parkinson's is a result of damaged neurons not producing enough dopamine. It is possible that polio may have damaged enough brain cells to worsen the loss of neurons, leaving organs vulnerable. So in conclusion, low dopamine level is a symptom of post-polio brain fatigue, and insufficient dopamine level is the hallmark for Parkinson's. So what does this connection mean for us in the 21st century? As you can see from the graph, polio cases have been on the rise in Pakistan. This is due to the anti-vaccination movement that became popular. Although the difference is subtle, this can mean a resurgence in polio in a global level. As Dr. Walter Ornstein, the consultant for the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, stated, if we stop the efforts we put in for polio, there will be another epidemic. And with regards to the connections to Parkinson's, the world may also face an increase in the prevalence of Parkinson's.
Now, outside the conventional box of medicine, we also tried to look at some of the non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and particularly mental health, as it is such an important issue that is rising in the global society in the modern world. So mental health can be defined as the emotional, psychological, and social well-being of each human. And we looked at a study population of 99 non-demented Parkinson's patients to try to find the percentages of the comorbidities that related to the mental health. So the following percentages were diagnosed with the following disorders labeled next to it, and we can see that there is an extremely high percentage for each comorbidity in these Parkinson's patients, showing that the data is statistically significant. So why did this happen? We tried to research upon the reason why it was so significant within these Parkinson's disease patients especially. So this may be due to the change in the hormone levels, which include hormones such as dopamine and serotonin, which are both hormones that try to control the human emotion, which can lead to mood swings, depression, anxiety, etc. And their decrease can lead to the increase of the stress hormone cortisol, which in turn, on the inverse side, also leads to depression or anxiety by stressing the human more and more through their hormone levels. Other behavioral changes included personality change, impulsive behavior, and hallucinations, which were all related to nervous system disorders. And as I mentioned before, since the cause of Parkinson's disease itself is due to the degeneration of the nerve cell ends.
Unfortunately, when it comes to curing Parkinson's, there's no way to completely get rid of it. However, hospitals offer treatments to slow down the process of it. With drug therapy, the medication mimics dopamine and increases the level. There are also surgeries available to help with the mobility of the patients. Supportive therapies include dietary therapies and physiotherapies. Researchers are looking into potential cures as well. The chemical ERADICATION had a protective effect on dopamine-producing neurons on animals. The researchers are going into using it on humans. Deep brain stimulation is one of the most successful researches so far. It is done by planting pulse generators to stimulate dopamine. There are drugs that also target the mitochondrial functions in hopes to slow down the process of Parkinson's disease. And the proteins and neuroprotective drugs are also in development to protect the nerve cells from further damage.
And finally, let us look at the ethical issues that concern biorising Parkinson's disease and treating it. Euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide are two important cures that exist nowadays that remain very controversial, as it includes the death of the patient by their own choice and free will to alleviate their pain from stressful disorders such as Parkinson's. Surgical risks and use of medication when the exact side effects are unknown are also potentially giving a great harm to the patients because further research has not been especially done to find out the exact negative implications that the diseases can have. Treating unconscious patients and artificial feeding also link to the rights of these humans because some patients who are in the coma state or are unable to speak what they want to are unable to express their free will and free opinions, and their family members or some kind of relative of some sort have to compensate that for them. So essentially, all treatments are highly expensive, which also relate to the economic class, and that relates to how NGOs should provide donations for them and other ethical issues that can rise from that. Essentially, money and rights are the two major aspects that we really should focus on when we're looking at the medical ethics, not only in Parkinson's disease, but also in other medical health issues. And on that notion, we would like to impose this final question to you. To what extent do humans really have the freedom to control the health of others and themselves? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Minyoung, Yeon, and Soyeon. Now pass on to judges for Q&A.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for presentation. I'm not familiar with speaking in English, so excuse me for speaking in Korean for asking. 지금 파킨슨 디지즈에서 파킨슨병에서 아까 트리터블이라고 다시 분리를 해놓으셨는데 그거의 기준이 뭐였을까요?
그 treatable symptom이라고 한 거의 기준은 약물 복용이나 So she asked what were the standards of treatable symptoms and what defines treatable symptoms. So treatable symptoms are symptoms that can be treated, in which symptoms can be alleviated through medication or emotional therapy. Treatable symptoms, as I explained for the treatments, it can be slowed down to the point where it doesn't exist. So through physiotherapy and dietary therapy or surgery, these symptoms can be alleviated.
에티컬한 프로그램이라고 한 부분에서는 약간 지금 스템셀을 가지고 얘기를 많이 하고 있잖아요. 그러면 아까 말한 지금 에티컬한 부분 이외에 스템셀을 가지고 엠브리오의 스템셀을 가지고 트랜스플란트 하는 과정에서 생기는 문제들 때문에 지금 에티컬한 문제가 되게 크다고, 사실 에티컬 이슈가 되게 크다고 했었었는데 최근에 업데이트된 내용은 스템셀 자체를 엠브리오를 쓰지 않고 우리 생체 내에 있는 다른 스템셀을 쓸 경우에는 다른 치료의 방법으로 대안으로 제시되고 있거든요. 지금 말을 한 것처럼 파킨슨은 도파민을 생성하는 셀에 문제가 있는 거죠. 도파민을 생성하는 셀에 디스트로이드 되고 디제너레이션 됨으로 인해서 생기는 질환이고, 그게 L도파를 투여해도 완전히 좋아지지 않기 때문에, 내지는 그거로 인한 부작용이 너무 사이드 이펙트가 너무 크기 때문에 문제가 될 수 있는데, 그거에 대안으로 지금 여기서 말씀하신 나머지 다른 부분보다 요즘 많이 많이 각광받고 있는 것 중에 하나가 스템셀에 대한 부분이거든요. 그거의 에티컬한 이슈라고 하면 엠브리오 스템셀을 쓰는 것에 문제가 있었었는데, 지금은 조금 방향이 바뀌어서 자기 스템셀을, 비만세포에서 스템셀을 쓰거나 이렇게 하면서 다른 대안의 방법으로, 치료의 방법으로 사용할 수 있거든요.
The statement, I don't think it was an exact question, but she has pointed out that stem cells and using their own stem cells from the somatic cell bodies is also one of the cures and an ethical issue that is the hot topic that is on rise in the medical field. And that is one method that can be used to cure Parkinson's disease, because the dopamine cell producing nerve ends are actually destroyed, and that is related to more of the hereditary aspects rather than something that can be cured. And our doctor has mentioned that using stem cells and that curing through that, or even genetically modifying some humans through that, are specific methods that are in rise in the ethical issues.
You mentioned 1 to 2 in every 1,000 people suffer from Parkinson's. That statistic, looking at it as it is, may cause some misconception because it seems like it's very few and a large number. But when you apply that number to population statistics, that becomes quite a large number. What are some of the reasons or the things that have hampered research into Parkinson's and cures for Parkinson's?
So Parkinson's, the age range for patients with Parkinson's is very limited. So Parkinson's usually only, the main patients with Parkinson's are between the age 60 and above. So there's limited data for anybody under that age. And also because Parkinson's is since Parkinson's is a disease, like, people have tried to research, and there has been research, but it's just that Parkinson's, because it's a neurodegenerative disease, people are not used to it, and there has been a lot of research within recent years, but I don't think that research has been done previously, so this is still relatively new research.
And adding on to that, like Mr. Hall, you have just mentioned, and Sammy has mentioned, because Parkinson's disease is a disease that occurs such in the a tiny range of people, which is only 60 and above, when we apply that to the general population, it might not be as accurate because it's much more prevalent in the older populations, whereas the prevalence is really lower in the younger population. So we can't really generalize it as the whole population in the global society. However, when the research tried to take this in statistically, it has been shown that it was 1 to 2 out of 1,000 patients. But really, when we look at this data, I think we really have to be careful to distinguish that between the patients who are in older and younger groups, as that's the main cause of Parkinson's disease.
Thank you. Well done, Liz.
Is there any special reason for collecting the polio and Parkinson's disease relationship? Because polio's prevalence is very low, almost eradicated disease, but why do you collect the relation of the polio and Parkinson's? I wonder.
So our team thought it was really interesting because polio, as you said, it was almost eradicated, but because of the anti-vax movement in different parts of the countries, the polio virus is on the rise. People have been researched that it has been going up, although it's trickles of it. And we thought, since polio affects the younger ages and to the extreme, and Parkinson's affects the older ages to the extreme, and they're both degenerative diseases. We thought the connection between them was interesting to see because when people have polio before, and they were more likely to develop Parkinson's in their later years.
I believe this is a question specifically for the statement made from the doctors. So apparently you have mentioned that there will be a stem cell using mast cell specifically, 기마세포. But I thought it was a granulocyte, in which means that it's a cell developed from pluripotent hematopoietic stem cell, in which means that I wonder why you have specifically stated mast cell as a source of stem cell. 제가 한국어로 번역을 하자면은 아까 방금 전에 기만세포를 줄기세포로 사용을 할 수 있다고 말씀하셨는데 그 기만세포는 과립구니까 그 조혈모 세포에서 발달을 해서 기만세포로 발달을 하잖아요, 나중에. 그러면은 조혈모 세포를 멘셔닝 하신 건가요? 아니면은 굳이 기만세포에 대해서 멘션을 하신 이유가 뭔지 궁금합니다.
제가 말한 비만세포를 언급한 건 비만세포가 우리 체내에서 가장 쉽게 뽑아내서 쓸 수 있는 스템셀이라는 것이고, 엠브리오가 조형모세포, 지금 말씀하시는 엠브리오 스템셀은 결국 엠브리오에서 얻어야 하고, 엠브리오는 결국 휴먼이 되는 과정에 있는 셀을 얻는 거잖아요. 그것 때문에 에피컬 프로그램이 생길 수 있기 때문에 우리 체내에 있는 비만세포 내에서 스템셀을 얻어서 그 스템셀이라는 건 결국 differentiated 된 셀이고, 스템셀의 특징의 하나가 호밍 이펙트가 있잖아요. 그 셀이 가서 다른 곳에 가면 데미지 받은 셀에 가서 찾아갈 수 있고 새로 리뉴할 수 있고, 그 다음에 거기서 디퍼런시에이션 할 수 있는 것이 스템셀의 특징이고, 그걸 이용한 스템셀 중에는 가장 쉽게 우리가 자기 걸로, 그러니까 이뮨 시스템을 발동시키지 않는 자기 걸로 가져올 수 있는 것이 비만셀이었기 때문에 제가 비만셀을 얘기한 거고, 지금 학생이 말하는 것처럼 엠브리오하고는 다른 문제고, 엠브리오를 쓰게 되면 엠브리오 스템셀을 쓰게 됐을 때는 에피컬한 프로그램이 생기고, 그러면 그러니까 요즘은 IRB라고 해서 휴먼을 리서치에 사용하게 쓸 때는 반드시 이것이 얼마나 문제가 모랄 프로그램이 있는지를, 그리고 이게 얼마나 그 사람한테 치명적인지를 영향을 미치거든요. 그렇기 때문에 엠브리오를 쓰지 못하게 해요. 그래서 스템셀에서 우리가 가장 쉽게 얘기할 수 있는 것이 비만세포였기 때문에 비만세포를 얘기합니다.
근데 그 조혈모세포 같은 경우는 골수에서 추출이 가능하지 않을까요?
조혈모세포를 골수에서 가져올 수 있는데, 그 조혈모세포를 골수에서 가져온 걸 가지고 그러면 골수에서 그걸 뽑아야 하잖아요. 그걸 뽑는 과정에서 생길 수 있는 리스크 팩터와 그것이 얼마나 치명적일 수 있는지, 그거에 대한 에티컬 이슈가 반영되면서 결국 요즘은 그 부분을 조금 더 쉽게 할 수 있는 방법이 있다면 굳이 골수에서 뽑을 필요가 없지 않을까요?
Thank you both Doctor and Jongwon. Because the judges can have a conversation after the medical review is finished, I would like to end their presentation now and then start the third presentation.
Thank you for listening, and we apologize for the technical difficulties in the middle.
So thank you for the passionate participation and the discussion. It was very interesting. Now we have the last team, who will be presenting Alzheimer's disease. So their abstract is that Alzheimer's disease is an irreversible and progressive brain disorder that slowly destroys memory and thinking skills and eventually the ability to carry out the simplest tasks. It is known to be the most expensive disease, costing more than cancer and heart disease. Unless something is done to eradicate the disease, the global cost is estimated to increase endlessly in the upcoming years. To deal with the upcoming crisis of neurological care and government funding, finding an effective treatment for Alzheimer's disease is essential. So, what did you find out about the disease? Let's listen to the team.
Good evening, everyone. We are Hyunsung, Kiri, and Lin, and today we're going to present about the Alzheimer's disease. In the 21st century, it is impossible to escape the drumbeat of the grim news about the Alzheimer's disease, that it is incurable and largely untreatable, and there is no reliable way to prevent this at this moment. So, what is the Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's disease is irreversible, progressive brain disorder that slowly destroys memory and thinking skill, and eventually the ability to carry out the very simplest task. When we talk about the Alzheimer's disease, the word that always comes alongside is dementia. To clarify the terminology used, Alzheimer's disease is one of the major causes of dementia, but it is not regarded as the only cause. The word dementia describes a set of symptoms that may include memory loss and difficulties in thinking.
So for the symptoms, the main symptom is the memory loss. Along with the memory loss, the patients will feel difficulty in planning, solving problems, or determining time and places, and have vision problems. Since they cannot think of the word they want to use, they will have difficulty in continuing conversations. They will frequently lose things, and they will feel hard at making decisions. This could lead to the decline in buzzing frequency, causing hygienic problems. They will feel extreme change in their mood and personality, feeling confusion, depression, anxiety, and fearfulness.
Due to the already described variety of the symptoms that characterizes Alzheimer's, there are 3 stages to its diagnosis. The first is to question the patient and their acquaintances of the patient's overall background. These questions may include the questions about the patient's overall health, lifestyle, past medication, behavioral changes, and the performance of daily activities. Then, to diagnose dementia, they will perform the test of brain functions, including the memory test, problem solving, attention counting, and language. Lastly, they undergo the standard medical test to identify the causes that will differentiate Alzheimer's disease from other forms of dementia. This includes the urine test, the blood test, and brain scans that may vary from CT, MRI, to PET scan. The distinctions that this medical test will identify are the shrinking brain, amyloid plaque, and tau tangles. Both amyloid plaque and tau tangles are a result of protein mutation that causes the structural change of the brain, known as the characteristic shrinking of Alzheimer's. This means the symptoms are reversible unless we can rebuild the brain's neural connections. Firstly, the amyloid is a protein that only functions to replicate and cluster its own copies. These clusters will block the neural connections that will formulate the person's mind. The tau tangles are clusters of filamentous tau protein. Normally, this tau protein serves to bind together the microtubules that keeps the cell shape and position of its organelles in the cytoplasm. However, in this state, they changes the shape from the unfolded monomers to the folded and polymerized filament that becomes, that is known as the tau tangle. In this state, it loses its functionality and the microtubules and cell disintegrates. and therefore the neurodegeneracy takes place.
95 to 85% of the Alzheimer's disease are sporadic, which means that they're caused randomly. Only 5 to 15% of the patients are caused by the genetic from their agents. It is not yet discovered why it actually happens, but it's caused by the abnormal buildup of the proteins, tau and tau tangles and amyloids in and around brain cells. The affected brain cells will lead to the decrease in the chemical messengers, especially the acetylcholine. This results in the shrink of the brain, starting from the area responsible for the memories, which leads to the symptom losing memory.
There are many reasons why it is very significant to find cure to the Alzheimer's. Firstly, there is the financial cost. In 2010, it was estimated that the global cost of Alzheimer's makes up to $604 billion. This is 1% of the global GDP. Because of Alzheimer's correlation with age and increasing life expectancy, it is predicted that by 2050, the cost will increase to $1.1 trillion.
The second reason why Alzheimer's disease inspires such dread is that it is not only fatal, but worse than fatal. Alzheimer's disease robs its victims their very humanity and terrorizes their families, their memories, their capacity for thoughts, and their ability to live full and independent lives, all gone. In 2019, there have been lots of ongoing research on Alzheimer's disease, and we want to highlight two groundbreaking approaches to it, which shaped a new era of the medicine. The first approach is using the principle behind the protein synthesis. The two main plaques that accumulate in the brain of people with Alzheimer's disease is amyloid beta and tau tangles. And the common point of them is that they are both protein molecules. Therefore, amyloid beta and tau tangles use protein synthesis for their formulation. Then some researchers came up with the following question. Why don't we interrupt the process of the protein synthesis by silencing the gene which codes for the specific protein? A gene is a part of our DNA that contains the blueprint for making proteins, such as hormones, enzymes, or raw building material. But our DNA is locked away inside the cell's nucleus and kept apart from a cell's protein-making factories, which are ribosomes. So our body used a short strand of genetic code called mRNA to bridge the gap and carry the instructions. The researchers are trying to find out the way to kill this messenger in a process known as RNA interference, so that protein cannot be formulated. This gene silencing approach was highly successful in treating porphyria in April this year, and potentially, this approach can apply to find a new cure for Alzheimer's disease.
Along with the protein synthesis, the new approach that was found in 2019 was the Alzheimer's blood test. By checking the level of the protein in the blood, the scientists were able to track the Alzheimer's disease before the symptoms appear. This helped the progress of drug trials, speeding up the research of drug treatments. Not even a month ago, the heading of the first drug that can slow Alzheimer's disease was given the top coverage of BBC News. A US drug company, Biogen, says that it has created the first therapy that could slow down the Alzheimer's disease and is now ready to bring it to the market. Currently, there are no drugs that can do this. Existing ones only help with the symptoms. Biogen will soon seek regulatory approval in the US for the groundbreaking drug called aducanumab. Aducanumab targets protein amyloid, clearing them, and this would be the massive advance in dementia treatment. However, the limitation is that aducanumab cannot provide the complete cure for Alzheimer's disease, as it simply plays the role of slowing down the cognitive decline, not curing nor preventing.
When we are dealing with a neurodegenerative disease such as Alzheimer's, the consideration of ethical issues is essential. The new approach to the cure in 2019 is totally different from how we approached the neurobiology before 2010, which suggests a constant paradigm shift in medicine. The reason why I mentioned the concept of the paradigm shift is that many scientists start to approach the neuro disease using mind-controlling technology or deep brain stimulation, where they attach or insert the electrode inside a specific part of the brain to control and remote the brain activity. Currently, the approach to the treatment of paralysis and drug addiction using this concept were highly successful, and the application to the Alzheimer's disease is not so distant future. The important thing we should bear in mind is that as the science of mind control advances, it will be essential to clarify the acceptable control practices with respect to humans' fundamental nature and self-identity. It should never be treated as a consumer technology and should not be used for any military application. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. The judges will briefly ask the question.
What do you think about the difference, just benign amnesia, just and difference of the pathologic memory impairment? What do you think? What's the difference? It's the very key point of the difference of the dementia, or just old age is just memory, a little impairment. Just think and.
There would be two different factors that would account for the difference. One would be the extent of the memory degeneration, the other would be the fundamental structure change that the brain undergoes to result in that kind of memory loss. Of course, the neural connections does degenerate a bit with old age. However, the degeneration due to Alzheimer's is the change in cellular structures and also the collapse of the cell structures almost. That is because of tau tangles. And therefore, there is a fundamental causal difference between the dementia due to old age and the dementia as a disease such as Alzheimer's.
And also, it is not easy to clearly distinguish the normal dementia and Alzheimer's by our side by simply diagnosis by the doctor. So we need to use the brain scan as mentioned before.
I have a great uncle who currently suffers from dementia and is in late stages of dementia. It is a difficult thing to witness, and often responsibility for the patients, for Alzheimer's and dementia patients, falls on the victims' families, which can be, number one, a very difficult thing to bear psychologically, but number two, financially. Considering Alzheimer's cost to economy at now well over $604 billion per year, should society continue to play a role in the care of Alzheimer's patients? And is there room for that responsibility to grow? It's a bit of an ethical question.
I do think it is a societal responsibility to care for the Alzheimer's mainly because it would be a growing problem for any society as far as the welfare develops, because of its correlation to old age, and especially because of the fact that it doesn't really correlate with poverty or hygiene or any other problems that would cause a country to not be able to afford welfare.
Right, thank you, Bill. That was great. I think we have a question over here. Brian?
You've mentioned that one method for Alzheimer's disease is gene silencing, but of killing mRNA to lessen the protein synthesis. But rather than that, is there a way of chemical treatment to promote methylation by manipulating ketone structure to lessen the gene expression of protein rather than just killing the mRNA?
Could you please repeat
So
the name of the chemical?
I'm just asking if there's any chemical treatments to manipulate methylation by manipulating the ketone structure, which is responsible for gene expression of a certain protein or DNA. So is there any of them?
Currently, there is no cure using the specific chemical because we need to target the specific protein, which is the amyloid beta and the tau tangles. And the research that we found out was the gene silencing, but the gene silencing also has some limitation in it because when the gene is silenced, their expression is reduced, but this does not mean that their genes are being completely knocked out, and the gene silencing kind of reduce only the 70% of the gene that cause for the Alzheimer, and this can be worded as a limitation of the gene silencing as well. And to answer your question directly, there is currently no chemical approach to this.
So thank you, Alzheimer's disease team. All three presentation is over. So now we have to calculate for the result. As we have to count up the marks each group have got for the results, we would have a short break and start again. Thank you. If you want to go to washroom, you can.
So it seems that the judges have made a firm decision on the results. So we'll pass over to Ms. Pritchard and Mr. Ho.
Right. Please excuse my voice. I waited for this very moment to get sick. Firstly, I want to thank all three groups for getting up here, talking about subjects which to me certainly sounded incredibly difficult and complicated, but which all groups spoke about with such aplomb that I now feel like I understand a lot more about three significant diseases that did at first seem very complicated. So thank you to all of you. I think you all did a wonderful job. But the moment you've probably been waiting for is the winning team. So there was a little discussion, there was a lot of counting, right? And we have decided that the team, with a combination of presentation, of content knowledge, of disseminating that content knowledge, of research skills, we've decided the team that has won tonight is the, almost said it wrong, is the Parkinson's team. Well done, girls, that was absolutely brilliant. I have a certificate for you. It says that first place is awarded to, but it goes to the Parkinson team. If you'll come up on stage here and accept it. Thank you, congratulations. There is, however, special mention that needs to be given to a particular individual tonight. I would like to single out Curie. I thought your answers to the questioning, which has not always been easy tonight, were absolutely outstanding. They were stupendous. It showed the ability to think quickly on your feet. It showed immense content knowledge. And the ability to take that content knowledge, which is often tied up in our heads, and respond quickly to questions that we weren't prepared for is something that is very important and will stand you in good stead later on, especially when it comes to university entrance interviews. So I'd like to give a commendation to Curie. I thought that was very good. Well done. I'd now like to hand over to Ms. Pritchard and thank you both presenters and the medical team for a very, very interesting evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for your time. And also, can we have a round of applause, please, for our judges? Mr. Hall, notwithstanding, Dr. Lee, okay, and Dr. Kim. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your input and also for supporting something that is so very new to this school. So thank you very, very much. And also, Year 12s, thank you for coming out and also for asking questions, okay? Little things like that are really important, and they were really quite good questions. Okay, thank you girls, well done. You did it. You did it. So many girls, you did it. You did it. Well done. Have a safe journey back home, wherever you're going, and also back to the houses if you're going. Thank you very much, everyone.